Have you been experiencing internal financial struggles triggered by economic concerns? Are you feeling capped at your current income level and can't seem to realize your financial potential? Energy healer Jean Border has created an emotional freedom technique, or EFT, tapping protocol to help calm the inner voice that keeps you stressed. Claim your free copy at jeanborder.com/vow and say goodbye to those financial blockages. Welcome to another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. It's not just about dreaming, it's about making those dreams a practical reality. Subscribe to us via your favorite network by visiting our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. Now, get ready. Your journey to success starts here.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Jean Border, with another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, where we talk everything energy and mindset related to help you better your business. I have a special guest with me here today, and we're going to spend some time talking about EFT, which those of you who know me know I'm really big into that. I've been doing it for decades. But before we get that, let's get to the reminder that I have for you about your free gift below, which happens to be an EFT protocol, tapping protocol for those of you who are having a few challenges with financial stress, we'll call it, money situations. Grab the PDF below, jeanborder.com/vow, or just click on the link. Do a few rounds of tapping before you make those decisions that might make you tense, because we want you to make calm, rational decisions rather than decisions based on fear or stress, right? Okay, so back to my special guest. This is Liz Fisher, who is an EFT person. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hi, Jean. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here today.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I was just thinking I have so many flat out business discussions on this podcast when I would like to have more of them maybe focus on modalities that I utilize all the time with my clients. And so you fit right in just at the perfect time. So we're going to talk EFT with slanted towards business, but more EFT.
Okay, good. I love how the universe does that.
Yeah. So talk to us about you. Introduce yourself to the listeners who may not have heard about you before.
Of course. So my name's Liz Fisher. Like Jean said, I am a certified EFT practitioner. My certification is through EFT International, and it's the gold standard method of tapping. I've been doing this for 10 years, and it was something that I stumbled on accident out of personal need. I had compulsive hair pulling disorder for 36 years of my life, which is referred to as trichotillomania. It's a tongue twister. And I was nursing my second son, and my anxiety was so through the roof. I was overtired. This baby had colic. I was always in the nursing chair, but I still wanted to nurse, as a good mom does. And I didn't want to take any medications. And I was at my wit's end, pulling out my hair, thinking, I'm going to have to wear a wig like I did when I was in my 20s, and I don't want to do that. What am I going to do? So I Googled how to help or resolve hair pulling without drugs, and I stumbled on EFT. I listened to a video, watched a couple of YouTube videos on it, started doing it, and it worked instantly, like nothing I'd ever experienced in my life. The urge to pull my hair went away. And if you are a hair puller or have any addiction whatsoever to anything, shopping, alcohol, smoking, that's the same kind of urge we're talking about here that I had to pull my hair. It's a really hard thing to not have these urges. So the fact that this worked was like, what in the heck? And then after 3 months, it was about Thanksgiving time. And it's a stressful time in anyone's life. My parents are divorced. It's always been a stressful time in my life growing up. And I started pulling again after 3 months. And I thought, I must not be doing this right. So I sought someone out locally. She became my trainer. Her name is Betsy Moeller. She's here in Cleveland with where I am. And she didn't help me with my hair pulling at that session, But I was intrigued because she was a trainer. So I thought, I think I might want to do this. And my background is in art. I have a BFA in graphic design with a minor in computer graphics. And this was not on my radar whatsoever. I always liked yoga and Reiki and all of that. But this was like, what? And people are going to think I'm nuts to do this. But honestly, it helped me so much that I felt called to do it. So I got certified, and my client base now, I've been in practice since 2018, and my client base is mostly people with body-focused repetitive behaviors because I know so much about them personally. Phobias. I had one specific phobia that is called emetophobia, which is the fear of throwing up. I was able to clear that using EFT. And panic disorder. I had severe panic disorder in my 20s, and I was able to get rid of that as well. So my client base is mostly people who have those types of disorders, but I see clients for just one session that want to improve something, manifest something, have, just goals that they want to achieve, or they are tappers in general, and they just need a refresher, or they want to have a new practitioner help them out over one, a hump of something that they're going through in their life. So that's kind of where I am today. And my practice has grown pretty well over the past years. It was really good during COVID because I see most of my clients all over the world via Zoom. I do have a home office here, which is actually adjacent to this room next to me. And I see a handful of people here, but it's mostly people from all over. So during COVID, it was like everyone wanted to do something to heal, and they were stuck inside. So that's actually when my business started, was right around then. So it was a blessing, really.
Yeah, I'm going to go backwards. The hair pulling thing?
Yes.
One of my best friends decades ago did that. That was the first time I'd ever heard of something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more the eyebrows than the hair. So,
okay, so
you had to learn how to do makeup to cover up things, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Apparently fairly common. And sometimes it's common in families.
It is. It runs in families. So that's the first thing I'll ask someone when I have a new client call is, that's someone that's coming to see me for a body-focused repetitive behavior. Do you have someone related to you that does this? I didn't know until 5 years ago that my mother has not hair pulling, but she has a body-focused repetitive behavior where she picks her fingers and all the skin on her nails. And she did that my whole life. But it didn't dawn on me until she said, "Oh, I always have done this." And I thought, oh my gosh, that's where this came from. So a lot of people have relatives or close, family members that do this. So it is kind of a familial, gene related. They don't really know, but it does run in families.
Something else you mentioned about the panic and how this is very useful for people with those kinds of issues. Sometimes it just takes one session and the panic goes away. There's this idea that 80%, I've heard a lot more, but I'm conservative, so I go with 80% of all dis-ease that we feel within the body is actually created by emotional issues that we've held on to or held on to in part and have not allowed to process through the body the way the body was created to process emotions. And so when you allow those emotions that you've been holding on to, not even consciously probably, but when you allow those emotions to move, the results of that holding on is no longer necessary and it's no longer there. So people who were afraid to drive on the highway now think nothing of it.
And it also, just like you said, Jean's exactly right, where when you're not processing, when you're swallowing, when you're pushing down, when you're not acknowledging uncomfortableness or feelings or whatever, it can manifest into a physical symptom, which is what these panic attacks are, which is what phobias are, which, a phobia can attach on to, my phobia was throw up. It could have attached onto anything. The anxiety that I was experiencing, it just happened to be throw up. It could have been thunderstorms or snakes or anything, but this anxiety wants to get out so badly, this emotion, this energy, that it will attach onto something in order to do that. So it's so important to process those emotions when they happen, let them happen. I have a 14-year-old, just turned 14 the other day, and 10-year-old son. And my 14-year-old came home yesterday from school with the problem. And he cried in the car on the way home. And I said, you know what? We have to tap through this tonight. No, Mom, the tapping doesn't work, a teenager. But the fact that I sat with him, we tapped through this little thing that happened that was upsetting to him. He cried. We tapped again. He cried some more. But I had to explain to him, hey, doing this helps you in the long run. You don't have this baggage. You processed this. You let it out. It was okay. We acknowledged it. So having this as a young kid, if you could do this you wouldn't have all this baggage at 40, that I had to work through before even becoming certified, which I'm sure Jean did too. We had to work through all of our own baggage before we can help anyone. So it's a lot to process after 40 years. So the sooner you can do it with a young child, the better.
And it's easy, and you can even get books on it. It's interesting that there are books published with kids' stories that have, teach them how to tap.
Yeah.
In addition to, there are apps out there. There's some, like the Tapping Solution. They have some things.
Yes, the Tapping Solution has an app. And then there are teddy bears that they sell that have the points on them for really young children to learn how to tap. And even tapping one point, or even just touching one point and breathing, even doing some finger tapping is so beneficial to lower that cortisol really quickly.
Another very common one is fear of airplanes when people have to fly, And one of the things I tell my clients, and we'll probably get to this later, you probably do this too, I don't know. But if people won't realize, if you've got your hands up by your face, they just figure they don't know what you're doing, they don't have a clue.
They have no idea.
And you're doing tapping points, and they don't, it's if you're even too embarrassed to do that, you can imagine it in your head. Mm-hmm. Watch your fingers tapping all those points. Mm-hmm. And your central nervous system will just miraculously calm down. Yeah. And you just won't realize that you're stressed as much. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how it works. It really is.
It is. I just had a client a few weeks ago who had a fear of flying at one session. That was it. Oh, that's all it took. And we had a couple of other things that we added in there besides the tapping, some relaxing music, something to listen to that was a distraction, some aromatherapy. But tapping this point too, this is a gamut point that was originally used in tapping when Gary Craig first started out. And put this tapping point on the back of your hand and putting your hand on your lap and tapping this point is really, really helps. It's really beneficial. So that's another inconspicuous way to tap. I don't care about tapping. I tap in the car, at a red light. I'm tapping all over the place. I don't care who sees me.
Okay, I have to throw this out there. When I learned tapping, I lived in the Washington, D.C. area. And if you've ever been there, you know what traffic is. Uh-huh. It can take 2 hours to get home on a Friday night, right? And at that point, I was driving a Jeep Wrangler, which means bouncy, 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 bouncy. And you're in the car for 2 hours. And if you need to make a pit stop, but there's no pit stop to make, you can use tapping to calm down that urge to find a bathroom.
Uh-huh.
That's just one of the more funny applications.
That is so funny because I've done that with my son in the car. Tap with me so that I make it home. I use the bathroom. It's awful, but it works.
It's an amazing tool. It costs nothing. It's so quick and easy to learn. You just need to do it repetitively until it becomes ingrained. That's the only part that you have to think about is actually practicing it until it becomes second nature.
Exactly.
Easy.
It is. It's so easy. It's free.
Now, what I do tell people is if you've got issues, if you've got trauma issues, whatever, sometimes it's not necessarily in your best interest to work on it alone. Because if something comes up, who's going to help you calm down?
Right. That's when you would use a practitioner.
Yeah. But for the stuff, everyday stuff, getting stressed because there's too much traffic on the road, just tap, you know?
Exactly.
When you have to go to a place you've never been and you don't want to get lost, tap on it before you pull out of the driveway.
Yeah. There's so many things you can do to even manifest, like the airport. Every time I fly, I tap the night before to manifest the perfect weather, the exact right person to sit next to. The lines aren't long, that I don't get, there are no I don't get stuck somewhere. I've never had a bad experience since I started tapping before flying. It's
Cool.
really, really a cool thing.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners would be interested in that one because business people typically have to get on a plane at some point in there.
A lot of, yes, more than they'd like to, probably.
So why did you decide to go into the business world with this?
So it made sense to offer it to people, very much so because the things that I dealt with were very unknown. I mean, people don't talk about trichotillomania. People don't talk about emetophobia. And there are people that have these afflictions. So I knew that I had this niche that was very different than other people. And I thought, I'm going to see what happens. And if it didn't come to fruition as a business, then okay. But I'm going to get trained in it and I'm going to try to help these people because it helped me. And why wouldn't I want to share my knowledge with whoever out there needs it? And you would not believe how many people have emetophobia. It's like, and they didn't know that other people had this. They didn't know there was a word for it. They're suffering. They have all kinds of other OCD issues going on because of this fear. So it was like, I've had so many people that are just like, thank gosh, I found you. I mean, it's like a blessing in disguise because no one even can talk about this. And the other thing is that not that my trainer was not good at helping people because she's amazing. But when I went to see her, I wanted help with hair pulling and she didn't know what that was. So it's like going to see a regular therapist or counselor, trained counselor or psychotherapist that has no idea about hair pulling. So how can they help you when they don't know? So I know all the intricacies of this so well that I thought, why would I not try to help people get over this? I mean, it was like this terrible affliction that I basically kept secret for 30 plus years. And I was meant to do this. I was meant to have the affliction for a reason, to find a way to stop doing it, to help others. So I felt called to be honest.
For me, it was migraines. That's how I got into this. I had migraines all my life. And the doctors couldn't figure out why. They knew I had peaks and valleys in my brain waves that shouldn't be there. But, they'd give me pills. I would take shots. I would go in a dark room. I would throw up, all that kind of stuff. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my introduction in the energy world, was following Peter Craig when he was Gary Craig. Peter's somebody else I know. Gary Craig, when he was first going around doing weekend seminars at different hotels. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I met people like Carol Luck.
Oh, I love Carol.
I know. I take that class.
I've read so many of her books.
Every time she does a class, I'm there. Yeah, the Yes Code, I think, is her new book coming out. Yes. The Yes Code.
Yes.
So anyway, that group of people then, and what I learned through years of this stuff is sometimes working on yourself is great. Other times you really need an EFT master to help you get down to what you don't want to understand or don't want to see.
Right.
And another thing I tell my clients all the time, do not relive something that was traumatic for you. There's no reason for it. With EFT tapping, there are so many techniques and ways to get you around that. You never have to experience that event. It will not change the event. The event did happen. It will change your physical, emotional, mental reaction to it so that there's no longer a charge on that. So you are no longer re-triggered by whatever it was that created the trauma in the first place. You'll be able to look back and say, yeah, that was a terrible thing. And I had
it's in my past. Yeah.
But I'm here now.
Mm-hmm.
And so all the people who come to me, oh yeah, I had to go talk about this, and I'm reliving all that. I'm like, huh? Don't relive.
Don't do that. Yeah, don't re-traumatize yourself for the love of God.
Yeah, and I tell them, you go into a movie theater, you're experiencing all that stuff even though you're not there. And when you talk about the trauma again, you're reliving that, you're recreating the emotions that you'd started to work through. But that's all some therapists know.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. There is another way.
There is. It's like we feel like we have this magic tool, I feel, that, once you want to just tell everyone about it because it's just so great.
And it works for everything. Like when I started the show, I have different protocols that are like what I call freebies, that I just throw out there. And this one that's available now happens to be on money because people get so stressed about money, and that's typically based on how they grew up, what they learned during that time, what they saw their parents go through, what they saw on TV, how, rich people are greedy and rich people are mean. And I don't want people to think I'm greedy, so I can't do that.
Yep.
There's some belief in there somewhere that is causing you stress in your body when you think about you becoming that mean, terrible person, whatever it is,
right?
Whatever the circumstances are. But it works for money stress. It works for physical stress. It works for emotional stress. You just open up, I call them energy highways, because people
I love that.
People understand traffic jams and can't get off the exit because it's backed up, and you open up the exit and now the traffic moves.
Yeah. I love that analogy. It's a great one for people that are need a visual of what it is. Yeah. And it is, there's a block there. There's a traffic jam going on there that you work to get an opening so you can go through and come out the other side. And, once you start peeling away the layers of the onion, there's work to be done. And it's hard work, and you have to be committed, but it's so rewarding in the end what happens. And the money situation I can attest to as growing up with not a lot of money. And my mother happened to come here this past weekend for my son's birthday, and the scarcity of money is still with her. And it upset me after I had to tap after she left, because watching her count out like nickels and dimes and stuff for like the tolls home upset me so badly, because it was like, wow, I got over that. But it triggered something in me just seeing her do that. So I had to tap through, this isn't me anymore. This isn't me. I've acknowledged that I don't have to live this way. But it's amazing how some people just, that's how they grew up. That's how their life was, and they're okay that way. But you don't have to be okay you don't have to put up with it. You can, there's ways around or ways to manifest and clear those blocks.
But sometimes they don't even realize there's something else available, right?
Right.
That's why I enjoy these conversations, because to me, it's well, of course, but to some people, it's like first time I've ever heard it,
Mm-hmm.
And so we're all on a journey, and we're all on different parts of the journey. I just happen to be further along, and you are, the energy journey, than some of the listeners might be.
Right. But that doesn't mean you can't get on board with a little bit of tapping. It's easy to learn. There's videos of it everywhere on my website, specifically all over the internet. I mean, it's like very accessible.
What is your website for those?
My website is tapintohealth.net.
And there'll be in the show notes, there'll be a link below. You can just click on it. But for those who or like listening in their car or whatever.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, check that out. And there's a bunch of videos on there, as well as my podcast, as well as a blog and other things that you might find helpful when you're just learning to tap. Some PDFs of the tapping points and things like that. So it's very accessible. There's a lot of free stuff out there to use.
And you're on Facebook and Instagram also, yes?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram. My Facebook is just Tap Into Health, and my Instagram is tap_into health_EFT. And yeah, I'm very responsive, and I post, daily, if not, or weekly, if not daily, on a social media. So there's a lot of people doing what we do. It's just, everyone does it a little bit differently, but everyone's out there to help other people. So doing energy work is so rewarding. It's like it snowballs into, I want to get certified in this and this and this and this. Like, you just realize how many things go together, all these modalities layered on each other, layered on top of each other, kind of work together. So it's really, it's an interesting way of healing and growing.
And most of us, like you were mentioning, most of us who get really into one modality eventually start branching out and get certified in multiples, just because it's nice to have different tools in the toolbox and pull the tool that's going to give the fastest or the best result for the client at a specific time, right?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And right now I'm also working with a colleague of mine. Her name is Lindsay Stanton. She was on my podcast earlier in my second season, and we just hit it off so well. And she does somatic healing, and something that I don't do. And she also calls in angels and does all kinds of, she does distance Reiki, things that I'm not certified in. But her and I put together some things that are also available on my website under the offering section, where we do joint sessions together. So her and I come together with a client, and the healing that happens when you have these different modalities that are used, and no two sessions are alike. Someone might need more tapping in one session. Someone might need more Reiki or chakra clearing in one session. But to layer these together, the healing that happens at a much increased rate than you would, it's just exacerbated by a thousandfold to have these other things together and not just one energy modality. So it's really cool. So her and I came together and we did that. We're offering those things to clients as well, as to get even a jump start on the healing process.
That's a really interesting concept that I had not considered. Because like all of us, I'm certified in a bunch of different stuff, and I utilize other things that I'm not certified in. But it had not dawned on me, even though I've considered doing the group healing, and there are ways to make that happen when certain qualities. I had not considered having multiple healers with one client. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, and it unfolds really however it's supposed to unfold for that client in that space at that time. And it's just kind of a neat technique that I'm sure other people do, but her and I were just called to do this together. And her specialty is grief. So she has kind of a different background than I do in, the clients that I specifically work with. But, that it doesn't mean that you have to have some sort of grief to work with us both. It's just she uses her modalities and I use my tapping. And sometimes I'm just doing surrogate tapping in the background for you while she's doing whatever whatever she feels called to help the client with. So it's just a more, I don't know if you would call it cost-effective way, but it really speeds up the healing process to have more than one practitioner of different modalities in one session.
That's really a cool idea.
Well, let me know if you want in on that. because I'm sure you know, I'm sure you know other things that her and I don't, or you and I, we could collaborate on something. It's not, I mean, I'm open to anything, really. I just want to help people.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, I'm definitely open to it. That would be a really cool experience. You mentioned something about whatever comes up is the right thing to come up. And that's actually how we touched on this before we got on the air. That's how I run my podcast. I don't script anything. I don't read anything that people have given me to let them know about them. Whatever comes up in the conversation is what was meant to come up for someone in the audience. And that's how I run my podcast.
Yeah, I'm the same way. There are some questions that I ask specifically, but it's very laid back. It's whatever's meant to happen. And as long as it helps one person that listened, that's all I care about. I just feel like these conversations are meant to happen. and it's because you had something, Jean, to talk about that you felt was really important that you started a podcast, right? I mean, so it's like we're just here to kind of put that information. We're the gateway to put this information out there for you. So yeah, the universe has a hand in it, though, for sure.
For me, it was about integration. My work experiences was very was federal government. So I'm going to say, if you think corporate, that was me. Everything here's the structure, here are the politics, here's the chain of command, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then when I left that behind, I focused more on the healing arts, which is a totally different. I mean, it's like
I know,
be more different, right? And so the podcast for me is a way to integrate all of that knowledge and all of this knowledge and feeling. I mean, almost two different parts of the brain, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
Two different parts of me, but both necessary and both applicable to everyday life in addition to business decisions, right?
Right. Exactly.
So a lot of my clients are business clients, but some of them are just people with health or personal issues, and I'm not a medical professional. I tell everybody repeatedly, when they sign up for a session, I am not a medical professional.
Right. I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose or treat anything.
I don't get in the middle of any of your stuff, but sometimes after our conversations or our times together, you may need to go back to your doctor and have him reevaluate your medications, right? Because we don't want to do anything that's not in your body's best interest.
Best interest, exactly.
If in your body's best interest to lower a medication, then that's what you need to address with your medical professional. But we don't do any of that. That's all
right.
that your body does for you.
When you talked about, your corporate experience, and I feel like, well, as an artist, I still have this creative kind of brain, which I feel like EFT lends itself to, because there's a lot of creative ways to use EFT. So I feel like I'm getting that outlet there, but I did come from that very corporate background. I mean, I had a lot of big time corporate jobs. The last job I had prior to having my first child I was the art director at a private jet company, where it was very, very high stress. And I developed problems at that job. So after when I was having my kids, I decided I'm never going back to that. I'll just be a freelance graphic artist or whatever. But you realize how hard those types of jobs are on your emotional just everything, the emotional component of it, the stress, the afflictions that you can get if you don't take care of yourself the right way when you're in that type of a job, and that's the job that you thrive in, and that there's nothing wrong with those jobs. I just knew after leaving, I could never go back to that situation. It was not good for me as a highly sensitive person. I couldn't do it anymore. I needed to be in charge of what was going on with me, my healing, my business, whatever that was. So and it's a leap of faith, kind of, to not go back to, hey, you got a steady paycheck, you have health insurance, you have, all, you have friends there that you've made along all these years. But it was, I knew I couldn't go back. So this is kind of how that it unfolded for me, was, with that, having kids and just knowing, hey, I can't do that to myself. It made me sick. That's where my panic attacks were tenfold exacerbated. I had them since I was probably 20, but when I was 25, 26, 27, and then I started to get migraines when I was working at that job. I could see how horrible it was for my body. And I thought, I can't do this to myself. I know that's almost sounds selfish. It's like you tell your husband, well, I can't go back to work. I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mom. And, but physically I couldn't do it.
Our body tries to give us cues. And it's very subtle at first. And then it becomes more obvious. And then it becomes really obvious. And finally it says, if you won't stop, I will stop you. And that's when all the chronic issues happen. Just like you said, you started having panic attacks, and then you started having, you were stressed, and then you started having migraines. It's just the body will find a way for you to start paying attention, whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. And with EFT, a lot of times I tell people, I'm just a translator. Your body's talking to you. You don't know what it's been saying. So we'll translate what's going on. You can choose to change that or not and see how your body reacts, right?
Right.
Translators, you're doing all the work. Your body's doing all the work. We're not miracle workers. We've just been trained in what to do and how to help you out.
Right.
And anybody can learn this stuff.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of corporations, and I've done this actually this past summer, I did a presentation on EFT to a group of C-level women executives that they put on once a month something holistic, something for their team to be able to use for self-care. And I think that that's getting more and more popular now in the business world, but it's something that should not be, put aside. People's mental health, their well-being, to be able to perform well at your job, you have to give people some downtime. You have to let people unwind. And so I have done quite a few. A couple summers ago, I did a presentation for 100 teachers in Toledo, Ohio, that on how to do tapping and how to teach it in class if they wanted to, because it's really helpful to even get through your day. There's if you could just get to the bathroom, if you don't want to tap in broad daylight in front of everyone at your cubicle or in your office, just go to the bathroom. I always talk about toilet tapping. That's where, when you have little kids and you can't get 2 minutes to yourself, shut yourself in the bathroom and tap while you're on the toilet, tap while you're in the shower. So it's honestly, it's just a matter of saying to yourself, I need to make my mental health a priority and my emotional health a priority and my wellness to be able to give back to anyone, a job, a spouse, children. So I think that not being in a corporate situation where no one's cares enough to offer these things to their clients, that's an epidemic, honestly. It's like people should be thinking about the mental health and wellness of their employees way more often than they do. So,
and it's sometimes difficult, referring back to something that you said, to actually make it okay for us to take care of ourselves. Just like you said, the guilt that came into play, asking, telling the husband, I need to not go back there, right? It's not okay, but apparently in your case, luckily, it was okay, and he was okay to listen. But we build that up in our head. There's this bit with, I also follow like Tony Robbins.
Oh, I love Tony.
Brother Richard, all those people. But the whole certainty and uncertainty, we need certainty in our lives, but we need uncertainty in order to feel alive, right? So we need the certainty of the paycheck, but we also need the uncertainty of what else is out there. What else can I experience? What else can I do? And maybe tapping will allow you to calm down enough to actually experience something new, whether that's a new job or a new hobby or going into a new social situation. Or this will sound funny, but in my previous world, well, in all my worlds, I'm a traveler. I'm a world traveler. But part of my job was to go out to a city that I'd never been in before, and I would be there for 2 weeks, and we would go to a lot of different businesses and interview them to find out information about their company. And with my group that was going from DC out to the areas, we would be paired up with someone from the local area, who would drive us around, who would give us information about the area, who would sit in all the interviews like an observer or whatever, a partner, if you will. So many of these people who were designated to be with us as drivers, they knew how to go from their home to their job, to drive from their home to the grocery store, to drive from their home to church, to drive from home to the school. Some of them never got on the highways because it was so scary, right? That whole certainty, uncertainty. So if you're ever put in a position where you have to step slightly out of your comfort zone and you just don't, you start to feel that tension and that, that flutter in the chest, like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Maybe just do a round of tapping and then see what your outlook might be. And if you're still as uncertain or anxious or nervous or whatever word you want to put on it, right? Before the panic attack gets really big. Now, EFT works for that too, but if you can get it while it's small, then it'll never grow. So on that note, can you just show everybody, for the people who are on the video watching, if you can just go through the points, and if for those who are just listening, if you could talk through those as you're...
Yes, of course. So when we tap, there are 9 points technically that we use. And if you don't do them in this order, or if you forget one, it still works. I was taught to tap double-sided, but you can do single-sided. So I do both sides of my body when I'm tapping, but you can do single-sided. And I'll show you and verbally tell you where I'm tapping. So this first point is called the karate chop point. It's the side of the hand. It's the fleshy part on either side of your hand. And you're tapping with your opposite hand. And you're using 2 or 3 fingers. And you're using firm but gentle pressure, not to hurt yourself. And we do a setup statement here that starts with even though, and it ends with I love and accept myself. We do that 3 times. When you're tapping with the practitioner like myself, that's what we would do. Now, you don't have to do the setup statement every time. It's just part of the protocol, and it does help. And then the next point is top of the head point. Some people who are not trained through Gary Craig's gold standard method will do the top of the head last. This is the way I was trained. Top of the head first. Then the eyebrow point, which is where your eyebrow starts on the inside part of your eyebrow. And we're tapping between 5 and 9 times, sometimes more, I'm not counting, and gently tapping. And then the side of the eye, which is the orbital bone, not the temple part, but the orbital bone on the side of your eye. And then next we go to under our eye, which is also the orbital bone. Feel that bone there. And then under the nose. And I love this point. All these points coincide with different organs. They're all acupressure points from Chinese medicine. They release and allow different energies in and out. If you're curious about that, on my website, tapintohealth.net, under the client section, there's a PDF there that shows what these points coincide with in your body. Then there's the chin point under your bottom lip. We're tapping. And then the collarbone point, which this is right under your collarbone. kind of midway under your collarbone there, underneath, in the middle. And then the last point is the underarm point, which for women, I always say it's where the bra starts. For men, it's just a few finger widths underneath your armpit. And those are the points. It's that easy.
Unlike you, I ended on the top of the head because there's so many acupressure points up there. When I go, there's one acupuncturist I really like. The first thing she does is she'll put a needle on the top of the head.
Right on the top.
Because it's the calming point to keep you calm through the others.
Wow. My acupuncturist doesn't ever do that.
Yeah.
So that's like your crown chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes total sense to me. Wow. I love that. I should ask. I don't know if she'd understand me. She's from China. She's trained in Chinese medicine. She barely even speaks English, but I know she knows what she's doing. But that makes total sense. But that's why I started with, some people do end on the top of the head. It just depends how you're trained or what you prefer. It doesn't matter either way.
And like you said, it's just once and typically you just go back and start over. So you're just doing the circle anyway, you know?
Correct. Yes.
But whatever feels good for you, just tap.
Just tap. That's all. And when a client says to me, I forgot what to say, I'll say, oh my gosh, I can't accept that excuse. You have to, don't say anything. Just tap 1 point, whatever feels best for you. Anything. Tap and breathe. Touch and hold and breathe. Anything that gets you to any of those points is going to help lower your cortisol. Your amygdala will calm itself. You get the fight, flight, or freeze. Your prefrontal cortex re-engages when you tap. So that's what makes you make. I know that Jean said about business decision making. That's when you do not want to make any big decisions when you are in fight, flight, or freeze. You will make the worst decision available to you if you are not regulated. So once you tap a few rounds, your prefrontal cortex is re-engaged and you can make good decisions. So tap before you make a business decision of any kind. Just tap 1 round. It'll definitely put your mind at ease and help you to focus on the decision at hand and make the best decision possible for you and your business.
Cool. And unfortunately, we're running out of time here. So you have some resources for our listeners that you've been talking about.
Yeah, so I would love to offer your listeners, Jean, anyone who comes to my website and signs up for a free 15-minute discovery call with me, either on Zoom or via phone. All you have to do is tell me that you heard me on Jean's podcast, and I will give you $25 off of our first session together. That's a 60-minute session. Or if you book 4 consecutive sessions, I will give you $50 off of those sessions as well. And there's all kinds of free resources on my website, tapintohealth.net. Please check out the video section, my blog, my podcast is Tap Into Health on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And Jean was talking at the beginning about fear of flying. There's a really good episode in there on fear of flying. And I'm thankful to be able to be here and talk with you all today.
Cool. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners before we go?
Just that you can do anything you want, really. Don't let anything hold you back. Things that, if everything comes with some fear, right? I mean, everything in life is fear. I mean, you need to move forward. There's always you can't predict anything. You can't predict the future, but you can tap to have clarity around where you need to be going, business-wise, personally, anything. So when you're in doubt, just tap.
When you're in doubt, just tap. And that's where we're going to end today's session. I want to thank Liz Fisher for being here. I really enjoyed our time together. I don't get to talk just energy all that often, unless it's with the client or with another practitioner. But on the air, we tend to talk more about business for whatever reason than we do energy. So I really enjoyed our time together. So thank you again for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Cool. And I want to thank my listeners for tuning in again. This is Jean Border with the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast. Until next time.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey.